You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
According to the most recent official numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau, there are nearly 3.6 million Black-owned businesses. An estimated 1.3 million people are employed by 4% of those companies, a testament to the resilience, creativity, and entrepreneurial spirit that permeates Black communities across the nation. However, despite this significant presence, there are still long-standing hurdles to entrepreneurship. Lack of access to capital, education, networking, and mentoring opportunities keeps potential founders from taking the steps needed to build something great. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Grant Warner, the inaugural Bank of America Endowed Professor of Entrepreneurship and Director of the Center for Black Entrepreneurship at Spelman College, to discuss how initiatives like the center are working to overcome these challenges. Led by Dr. Warner, the center is pioneering new pathways to success, providing aspiring Black entrepreneurs with the tools, resources, and support they need to thrive in the competitive business world. Welcome, Grant. I'm so excited to have you here on the air.
Thank you, Lisa. Excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're very welcome. And we have a lot to talk about today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And I wanted to start off by asking you about the Center for Black Entrepreneurship, because I know this represents a significant investment from the Bank of America as well as other partners. So tell me, how do you envision this financial support translating into some tangible benefits for aspiring Black entrepreneurs?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, the Center for Black Entrepreneurship is a partnership between Spelman, Morehouse, and the Black Economic Alliance. The mission is to unlock Black entrepreneurial talent, connect it to capital and commercial markets, and we're really thankful for all of the partners who have contributed to the formation and growth of the center, including the anchor investment from Bank of America. And when we think about the support, it will provide benefits both to aspiring entrepreneurs and practicing entrepreneurs. So we're announcing this week the launch of the Entrepreneur Scholars Program, which will deploy $2 million to offset the cost of tuition for our aspiring entrepreneurs on the Spelman and Morehouse campus. Additionally, the program will reinforce core principles through programmatic support, which will focus on ecosystem, education, and pathways. But then when we look at practicing entrepreneurs, oftentimes HBCUs can't compete in all of the available funding opportunities because there's not the pool of available matching dollars. Now, the financial support from the partners have allowed us to pursue an EDA opportunity called Build to Scale, which we subsequently were awarded because we had the capital to meet the matching funds requirement. We expect, again, to have some of the similar programmatic elements, the ecosystem, education, pathways reinforced for those, that community of practicing entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's really great. And I wanted to ask you, it's obvious that the center's aims to eliminate barriers for Black entrepreneurs. And you mentioned providing access to education by helping to offset tuition. But I'm sure there's also things related to mentorship, and you've also alluded to capital. How do you envision the center helping to achieve those goals as well?
Sure. Yeah, the center has a few key aims that we come back to: this ecosystem, the education, the pathways. And when we think about the ecosystem, it's kind of the deep and meaningful connections between our ecosystem, our stakeholders, and kind of the broader actors in the innovation ecosystem, making sure they're really deep connections. It manifests itself in the mentorship programs. So as an example, we have a mentorship and residence program that we've started this year, which aims to have weekly touch points or provide access to weekly touch points for our students to funders, founders, and also ecosystem builders. So we have one of our alum, a VC with the Opportunity Fund, which started as SoftBank's $100 million commitment to underrepresented founders, who's come back as a mentor in residence for the program. And I think that speaks to the quality of our mentors. As you've noted, we count the Entrepreneur Scholar as part of that ecosystem development. We have the University Innovation Fellows, where they engage with a broader set of university innovation fellows from different institutions all over the world, which is important. Where next week we're hosting First Pitch Fridays, which will bring some VCs to campus and provide exposure for our students to that ecosystem. So again, all of it has the goal of introducing our stakeholders and students to the larger ecosystem. So ecosystem is one of those pillars. The other one is education. And I think from our vantage point, what we're really trying to share is our experience and knowledge at the intersection of race and entrepreneurship. So we've launched an online certificate program with those elements, and also an on-campus minor. So again, kind of when we think about our stakeholders, we think broadly in terms of aspiring entrepreneurs on campus, practicing entrepreneurs, adult learners, practicing professionals off campus. And then on the pathway side, it's about deepening relationships with the startups and funders, but then providing access for what might be next. So we have a program that's run by my colleague, Dr. Tiffany Bussey, called the Entrepreneurship Leadership Consulting, that places students with the scale-up companies that she's working with. Again, giving them kind of deep exposure to what that looks like, but also providing an opportunity for them to practice things that they learn in the classroom to the benefit of those companies. We're doing reverse VC pitches, having VCs come to campus, really explain their investment thesis, programs that they have available that students can leverage. And then on the pathways is really opening up access to capital. So one of the benefits of the partnership with the Black Economic Alliance is they are supporting both the Center for Black Entrepreneurship and a sister fund called the Entrepreneurs Fund, with a carve out for people who go through our programs. So we're really thinking kind of comprehensively about the support, again, about building ecosystem, providing education for the development that you need, then providing pathways to funding and experiences past those things.
Well, Grant, I'm curious, you've mentioned a lot of different programs and initiatives. How many people are at the center besides yourself?
Yeah. That's a great question. It depends on how you count. I mean, the beautiful thing is that the center was established on Morehouse's and Spelman's campus that already had a dynamic entrepreneurship environment. So at Morehouse, there's the Morehouse Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. I alluded to Dr. Tiffany Bussey.
Yeah.
And they have programs. On the Spelman side is the Spelman Innovation Lab, and they manage programs, including the Spellpreneur program. So in some ways, it's a confederated approach, that brings together stakeholders that already exist, and then we're supplementing it by increasing the staffing at the center. But that is a process that's still in motion.
I would imagine so, given all these new rollouts of programs that you just described.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, and you mentioned about this dynamic entrepreneur ecosystem, and obviously there's been a lot of success there at Spelman with its entrepreneurship initiatives, and those seem to me to be deeply rooted in the institution's commitment to nurturing diverse perspectives and fostering inclusivity. So tell us how Spelman ensures that its entrepreneurial ecosystem remains inclusive and equitable and empowers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds to thrive.
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we think about HBCUs, I think people naturally expect them to be homes of diversity. But
Yes.
when they think about the diversity, it's just that, they're kind of Black students there. But then within that Black student body, it's not monolithic, right? It's, first gens mixing with people who are legacies. There are people who have gone to private schools mixing with people who have gone to public school. People who are from the South, people who are from the broader diaspora. So it's always had kind of a rich diversity within the HBCU experience. In fact, my family is from the Caribbean, and one of my grandmother's brothers went to Tuskegee.
Oh, wow.
And it was part of and then his son went to Tuskegee. So it's always been part of the dynamics of an HBCU. So the other part that I would say, so you got this kind of rich diversity. The other part that I would say has traditionally been the strength of an HBCU is the idea of safe space, even before they were called safe spaces, right?
Yeah.
How do you provide an environment that allow people to explore their interests and figure out whether or not they like that thing without feeling judged, as they kind of go through the bumps and bruises, something that allows them to fail forward. And I think the HBCUs have been a model of that. When you look at particularly STEM education, one of the reasons I think STEM education has been so successful at HBCUs, you look at engineers and people who go on to get PhDs in STEM, HBCUs are overrepresented, is because they provide that safe space that I can go out, explore, I can learn, I can be wrong, but my failure is not a fatal failure, right? Anything that I don't understand provides me an opportunity to fail forward. And what the CBE is trying to do is bring that HBCU dynamic to entrepreneurship in ways that a lot of Black students don't experience that when they're at a PWI, but they can get to experience it here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And talk to us a little bit about the unique role that the center is playing in bridging that gap between Black entrepreneurship as well as professional investors. You've alluded to it a little bit more, but I'd love to learn more about it as well.
Yeah. As I mentioned, it's kind of in the DNA of the CBE, so to speak. When you talk about bringing together Spelman, Morehouse, and the Black Economic Alliance, the idea, I think, in having the home at the AUC is, well, how do you bring kind of the top HBCUs and then bring them closer to the network that the Black Economic Alliance has? And the BEA was founded by really some of the foremost Black leaders in corporate America with that whole goal of bringing their resources, expertise, et cetera, to maximize the impact on work, wages, wealth for the Black community, and want to make sure that they bring that home to the institution. So the core idea is to leverage their network inside the classroom. How do we begin to build case studies that serve as digital repositories, not only for our students, but that can be shared, kind of across the HBCU ecosystem and beyond. As I mentioned, they're forming the Entrepreneurs Fund, and that's already been catalyzed with some initial investment. And one of the ways that we facilitate funding after people have gone through CBE programming, part of what's built in to that fund. And then there's just our intentional work. As I mentioned, hey, let's do the reverse VC pitch. When we have pitches, let's engage with the Black VC community, both formally through Black VC and informally through individual discussions that brings them and engages them with our students. I was sharing earlier today, I was having a conversation, and when you think about the lack of VC funding for Black entrepreneurs, less than 2%, depending on the stat, you get somewhere around 1% less for Black women. It's easy to say, well, it's kind of a pipeline problem, and then you look at the research work that is promoted by the SEC, for example. They say, well, when we look at the behavior of VCs, when they look at companies founded by Black entrepreneurs, we notice that there's a difference in their behavior. They'll focus more on how well they understand the ecosystem, how well they understand the competition, what does their product look like, than they will with other entrepreneurs. So we need to bring VCs to campus to talk to them about the, kind of the evaluation, the diligence process, strengthen them in areas that we know that that we believe wrongly that they're over scrutinized around, so we can make sure that we strengthen them. So there's a really particular mission around making sure there's access to capital. And then beyond VC, I think the example from the pandemic, when we look at stimulus funds, begins to help us understand what happens to Black entrepreneurship when there's access to capital. There's been a number of research studies that look at the increase in entrepreneurship during the pandemic. It was kind of decreasing prior to that, then an explosion since then, and really has been mapped quite closely to the release of stimulus dollars. And that impact is amplified inside of Black communities. And it's because there has been traditionally a dearth of capital in those spaces. But given access to capital, there's a lot of entrepreneurship potential that gets unlocked. And again, we want to be part of facilitating that unlocking.
So, Grant, I wanted to also ask you, how does the Center for Black Entrepreneurship go beyond teaching technical skills to helping to instill intangible qualities and mindset necessary for entrepreneurial success? And here I'm talking about things like resilience, adaptability, and creative problem solving.
That's a fantastic question. As I mentioned, there's a minor that recently launched across both campuses. One of the core elements of that curriculum is Black entrepreneurial mindset. And it speaks to all of those things, kind of the resilience, adaptability, et cetera, that's important. The other piece, though, I think is kind of the historical vantage point of how the Black community has demonstrated those things in the face of adversity, and really grounding students in that knowledge. I think that helps build a bridge to their future success. So that's a key component. The other part, though, of the minor, it's that Black entrepreneurial mindset, but it's also making sure that you have the core frameworks that are popular in entrepreneurship, design thinking, lean startup. We require students also to go through those courses. Now, again, we think differentiating element as we talk about the intersection of race and entrepreneurship is to make sure that we're bringing people into the classroom that can reflect their own experiences that students can identify with. So really, particular about as we walk through the business model canvas, where are the entrepreneurs we can bring in that can speak to various boxes? Or if we're doing design thinking projects, where are the projects that they can do in the community where, it's both meaningful and impactful? So I think all of those are kind of bottled up in the minor today. And then I'll just close by going back to that comment about safe spaces. I think in terms of the pedagogy, what we're trying to do is make sure that we create a safe space so that people can propose ideas, be critiqued for those ideas, but still feel empowered to move forward with new knowledge, right? That strengthens them and prepares them for what's next.
Yeah, and I think it's really incredible because I know Spelman and Morehouse students participate in a number of immersive programs. And one I wanted to mention in particular, the European Innovation Academy. And, obviously that helps broaden their perspectives and hone their entrepreneurial skills. So how do these international experiences contribute to the holistic development of the school's entrepreneurial ecosystem? And tell me, what unique insights do students gain from engaging with these diverse markets?
So I'm going to provide a bit of a nerd answer. So I have a PhD in mechanical engineering. So I had a mentor once, and like one of his sayings was, a solution is dependent on the boundary conditions. So, you could have the same material, you change the boundary conditions, you get very different responses. But in order to really appreciate that, you have to be exposed to different boundary conditions. And so programs like the European Innovation Academy is one way that you get exposure to different boundary conditions. Kind of what are the behaviors and cultural norms that might dictate consumer behavior? What are the rules and regulations that might impact business decisions, right? When we look at kind of how transaction happens, all of those things are important to be immersed in, right? To really appreciate the ways in which they might impact entrepreneurial behavior. So I think on one side, these immersive programs have the benefit of that type of exposure, right? Exposure to different boundary conditions. And again, I'll shout out my colleague, Dr. Bussey. She has taken a number of students on these types of trips. I think there's one coming up to Portugal, and she is engaged with the SBA to bring in some people who are really, versed on the Portuguese ecosystem and trade, et cetera, that provides some foundation. The second piece, though, is on the network development, like that ecosystem piece. If you want to be successful in entrepreneurship, I was reading an article about Richard Parsons, used to run Citibank. It's like, well, it's 10% what you know, 10% who you know, 80% luck. So the 10% what you know, we can do through the curriculum. 10% who you know, we can help by providing experiences like this, people who are also connected to the ecosystem, not just where you are, but all around the world, which we think is pretty valuable. And hopefully those things impact your luck, right? Because in some ways, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Exactly.
And the more people you know, right, the more chances that you will see an opportunity that you can leverage.
Absolutely. So, Grant, a little bit earlier, you mentioned about the launching of an online certificate program. Can you share some of the details about its structure and the specific audience it aims to serve, making high quality education in Black entrepreneurship accessible to a wider community?
Sure. The online certificate program actually was piloted under Spelman over the last year. In many ways, it has a very similar structure to the minor. So it's a sequence of courses that you get, and at the end of that sequence, you get a certificate. The target audience is outside of the academy. So we're really looking at adult learners, people perhaps later in their careers looking to explore entrepreneurship, or early stage entrepreneurs looking to refine their approach as they begin to build and scale their venture. The other piece, I would say, looking at our offerings, we're now beginning to think about iterations to the offering. Well, how might we develop standalone courses with micro credentials? So again, if you're a practicing entrepreneur, you might not have to sit through a 4-course sequence before it pops out a credential for you, but you might get something specifically in fundraising that could be meaningful and helpful. The other piece that we're thinking through right now also is an open source front end. Like, how do we provide kind of broad exposure to many people about topics really relevant to entrepreneurship and Black entrepreneurship? And then if you have a desire, there's an opportunity to go deeper through some of these, the standalone courses that might shoot out micro credentials. So we're really excited about the possibilities for the certificate program. And we expect to roll out at least the first pilot versions of these new iterations in the latter half of this year.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing program. Congratulations. So all the best of luck with the pilot. So, Grant, I wanted to ask you, could you share some examples of some success stories from Spelman and Morehouse's entrepreneurship initiatives?
Sure. And, it's interesting when you look at success stories. In some ways, you might think, well, the success story of someone going and launching a unicorn. And I think that would certainly be a success story.
Definitely.
But I think the broader impact for the program is not that, right? It's the changes that we do in individual students as they go on and prepare for their careers. So interestingly, earlier today, we had a Q&A with some students, just kind of about their experience with the CBE. And one of the students mentioned, well, they came to college not really thinking about entrepreneurship at all. But because the CBE had started the minor, they had an opportunity to take entrepreneurship courses with one of our professors, Professor Millicent Springs Campbell. And in that course, there were a number of guest speakers that came in, and in engaging with that broader ecosystem, it sparked a passion that made them realize, well, entrepreneurship is really something that I do want to do. and that I want to do with my life, right? Not just go and take classes, but something I want to do in my life. And that is the win that the CBE is really trying to attain, right? Well, how do we make entrepreneurship available to all of our students? And then you make the choice about what that particular mindset, skill set, frameworks, et cetera, can be used for. So for some of our students, that means, yes, I'm going to go on to entrepreneurship. And what she wants to do is start a Pilates studio. Like, hey, I want to do something that I'm passionate about. And that's a fantastic win. Other students will realize, well, you know what? I'm really interested in this space. I want to go be a funder. I want to provide capital, or I want to go work for an entrepreneurship support organization, or I want to go work inside of a large company, and maybe I'll be an innovator there, or I'll be an entrepreneur there and lead a new product line, or maybe I will just be a great employee because I have self-efficacy that's come from exploring entrepreneurship. All of those things are fantastic wins. We had another student that was interviewed kind of for this same blog, and it was an opportunity for him to explore tech entrepreneurship, and he wants to go. He's launched a company, sold some version of that company, is building another one, been able to go to pitch competitions and win some of those. Again, fantastic win, but they're just different paths that people take kind of with access to this skill set. So no one particular win, right? Just a bunch of opportunities to make sure that we provide exposure, that we have programs of quality, that we are touching enough students, and then we're here to continue to support them.
Yeah, and it sounds like your programs are definitely having an impact and really reaching pretty far with your students. So congratulations. So Grant, as we look ahead, what do you hope the CBE will have on the Black entrepreneurial community and the broader business landscape? And how do you envision its ripple effects transforming lives and shaping the narrative of Black entrepreneurship?
Yeah, great question. So I think aspirationally, if I were to step back and think about what the CBE could represent, I hope that it's an example of how HBCUs can help to transform the community around them, right? Really be an economic development engine, spurring economic change without gentrification. As I was leaving DC, there was an innovation district that was forming around George Washington University, which I think is fantastic. I know as I arrived in Atlanta, there were a couple of proposed bills going through the state legislature, one being a prosperity planning district, which targeted HBCUs. But I think there are kind of all of the catalyzing elements for something like that in the AUC. So we've gotten the investment from our corporate partners, the organization that came from the CBE. There's the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs, which is within walking distance. Have a mayor's office that really is thinking about how do we accelerate the growth of Atlanta as an entrepreneurship ecosystem. So I think there are all of these catalyzing elements. So I hope that the CBE and its partners can capitalize on that for the benefit of Black entrepreneurs. So I think that part is really important. But the other part of it, in addition to the acting and the actions, like setting up programs. So we have what is essentially a pilot program called CBE Lift, done in partnership with the mayor's office through Invest Atlanta, Tie Atlanta, which runs a mentoring and investment network, and a few programming partners, including the Daraja Collective, to support 16 Black tech entrepreneurs per year, and really begin to kind of model these partnerships that we think are important for supporting and accelerating Black entrepreneurship. The entrepreneurs will be housed at the Russell Innovation Center. So I think all of these elements all of these elements coming together. But the other piece of it is making sure that we're doing rigorous evaluation around that, like really understanding kind of what drives the best outcomes and codifying those as best practices. So we do have a research agenda in partnership with the Black Wealth Data Center, really thinking about what are the levers for creating Black wealth. So I would say, in addition to creating the actions and the environments for an innovation district or something like that, is making sure that we're collecting the data points that allow it to be replicated and improved.
Well, Grant, thank you so much for all your time today and for sharing so much about the CBE with us. Congratulations. It sounds like it's having a tremendous impact. And thank you for all the hard work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And if anyone's interested in learning more about the center, feel free to visit cbecenter.org. And we'd love to have you involved in the work that we're doing. This is only possible when we partner. So you're always looking for partners.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Grant.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today's insightful conversation, it's evident that the path to fostering Black entrepreneurship is both challenging and promising. From bridging the gap between Black entrepreneurs and professional investors to instilling essential entrepreneurial skills and fostering a culture of innovation and resilience, the Center for Black Entrepreneurship is paving the way for a brighter future. Thank you to Grant for sharing your insights with us today, and thank you all so much for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at AUTM.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.